So, folks, while an official date of the general elections is yet to be announced, reports of campaign materials being torn down and verbal clashes between members of parliament have raised concerns about how these tensions may escalate. With us now to explore practical steps to reduce political tensions, Professor Trevor Monroe, International Governance Consultant and Founding Director of the National Integrity Action. Morning, sir.
Good morning,
AMDG.
Morning.
How are you, sir?
So far, so good. How about you?
Can't complain, sir. Give thanks.
Yes, AMDG.
Yes.
George Azalum.
Ad Majorum Dei Gloria.
Dei Gloria.
Yes, yes.
Professor, before we get to that, how sensible is a fixed election date? If sensible is the word, I'm not certain that's the
It's a good word. Sensible.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and it has been agreed on, by so many. Prime Minister Golding agreed on that. Current Prime Minister Holness said that he would do that in the first 100 days. I think we're about 3,000 days now. It's a sensible step. Of course, you'd have to build in safeguards to ensure that if there's a crisis before the fixed election date, you can have an earlier election.
what do you mean by that?
But the uncertainty,
What do you mean by if there's a crisis?
suppose there's the government loses confidence of the majority, and the majority says, look, as has happened in the UK so many times, Prime Minister, we like you, we supported you when the election was there, but we really don't feel you're doing a good job, we want to change you. There needs to be a provision for, say, a two-thirds majority to say, okay, we have a fixed election date, but there are some developments that require us to move earlier.
Why do you think we haven't done it?
It's a strange thing because it's an agreement, but very often what happens is that people agree to do good things in opposition. When they become government, they forget. And we, the citizens, need to do much more than we're doing now to remind them of their commitments and promises, because promises made and promises broken reduces trust in our system, and that's not a good thing.
Where do you think trust is now in our system?
Well, the data shows us it's pretty low. And you may recall that it was in 2020 and before that in 2016, our current Prime Minister says, and we can quote, that it is true that a large number of Jamaicans have lost trust in our system. And we, referring to the government and the opposition, Parliament, need to do everything to restore trust and to do nothing to reduce trust.
Yeah.
So it's generally recognized that we need to build trust, and building trust means keeping your word.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the lead up of the elections. And I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that we have become a lot more mature. Not only the what do you call it, the electorate, but even the parliamentarians, truth be told. I don't think we're flinging too many stones as maybe years ago.
There are anomalies. Yeah. There are some, but in the main.
Is that
I think we've gotten far less inflammatory.
Yeah.
And of course, most of all, far less violent.
Yeah.
But there are sufficient incidents to make us not complacent. You may recall that it was on July 20 that there was an incident, shooting, near a meeting in central Kingston. Right. And to this day, I don't know if you have heard, I haven't, the Ombudsman, which is now a collective body, no longer a single referee, but a 9-man referee level. Yeah. You can imagine that in a football match. We haven't heard anything as to what happened, who's responsible to ensure that it doesn't occur.
The police did come out in Central Kingston and say it was not politically motivated.
I'm happy for that, but the political ombudsman, political ombudsman who has the primary responsibility to ensure that the campaign is non-violent, made a statement on July 21st and has said nothing subsequently. It would have been good for them to say as well that, look, it wasn't in any way political, and let's make sure we don't have any recurring or suggested
we need to talk
assessment that it was.
About the ombudsman and the role, and whether we did a bad thing in doing away with it, and how this 9-man referee team is doing in that stead. But let me draw your attention to a comment made by one of the MPs on the JLP side. He says he's accusing the PNP of engaging in what he called 1970s politics of division, fear and intimidation. This is in relation to what's been going on with the removal of material, and There's tensions rising in the PNP as you know, material is removed. This was in St. Thomas Eastern in particular. Do you think that statement is an accurate statement, considering what happened in the 70s?
Well, it's certainly an exaggeration, but we don't want to see the moving or paraphernalia, the tearing down of orange or green, because that's, again, against the political code of conduct. And part of our problem, part of our challenge, is that very few people know what's in that code of conduct. And one of the things I think we need to do, in fact, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica has that responsibility now, is to do a serious multimedia campaign. What are the 8 points? No inflammatory speech, no intimidation, no prevention of access to particular communities. All of those are in there.
I didn't know there was an 8-point anything.
There you go. And yet we know from every night, you look on your television news, the road to republic, the road to republic. We want to see something, the road to a non-violent election, the road to peaceful election. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be done. The ECJ needs to use its budget. It needs to bring together both the leader of the Jamaica Labour Party and the president of the People's National Party, and it needs to have a public, on-camera signing of the code of conduct, and thereafter turn that event into a serious multimedia campaign to show people and to tell them what's not acceptable based on the code that both leaders have signed. And there needs to be an indication by both leaders that if you're behaving consistently with the code that we are appealing to you to uphold, there will be disciplinary measures within our political organization. There can be no mincing of words.
But who's going to enforce? A part of our problem is always enforcement, accountability and enforcement. Who is going to, when this happens? I mean, the PM has spoken out the other day. He said, you know, signs don't win elections. He's told his people, do not do this. I'm sure the opposition leader has done the same. Who is that person? Who is that body that puts something in place that penalizes?
Simone, you hit the nail on the head, which is why from 2011 until 2024, there was a consensus that the referee that we had then, the political ombudsman, the single person, maybe they could issue a yellow card, but no red cards. And there was a consensus that the law needed to be changed so that the code of political conduct would become legislated and that there were sanctions for breaches following an appropriate investigation. Bruce Golding, Prime Minister then, put before the Parliament in May of 2011 that position, and that the political ombudsman should become constitutionally protected. As it stands now, a simple majority can do what was done in 2024, which is to put the office in the Electoral Commission and turn a 9-man referee without any capacity to sanction. So that initially, it has to be the party leaders who say, look, you're not behaving in accordance with my instructions and the code, but secondarily, and most importantly, the code of conduct needs to be enforced by the ombudsman. And I really do hope that following this failing experiment of a 9-man referee, that the ECJ itself will say, look, whoever wins, please look again at this law to restore not only the previous ombudsman, but to strengthen it in the way that was being proposed by Prime Minister Golding and subsequent leaders as well.
Yeah. Professor, I suspect just to do your job competently, you'd have to do lots of research and go to other areas. How are we compared to other communities, say even in the Caribbean?
Well, I think in many ways, Neville, Jamaica has been a leader.
Okay.
In so many ways, both bad and good. We were a leader in the 70s in terms of all of that near civil war.
Right.
But when it comes to things like campaign political finance regulations, despite the weaknesses, for example, I can give you $30 million to your candidature or to the political party, and once it's before the election period, I don't need to declare it to the Electoral Commission.
Wow.
So there are many loopholes, but we were the first in the Caribbean to have campaign finance regulations which prohibit anonymous contributions and which require at least a declaration to the Electoral Commission as to who gave how much above a certain amount. In this regard, in terms of the Ombudsman, we're also a leader, but there are serious flaws. And instead of going forward, we're going back ways.
Can we-
We're going back ways on where we were in years gone by, and the commitments that were made to make sure that this referee had more power rather than be abandoned to a 9-man referee.
I want to, we have to go, but I want you to expound a little bit on what you call the failing experiment of the ECJ as ombudsman. Because I remember when the ombudsman was in power, a lot of people thought she was just a figurehead, the position was just a figurehead and nothing was being done. Clearly we realized that that was not the case. But the ECJ, you say, you call it a failing experiment because? I just want you to...
Well, I think they've been giving basket to carry water, basically. I mean, I saw a program where someone in authority in the ECJ was saying, look, we have 28 days to complete any investigation. Do you know how many days between the announcement of the election in 2016 and the actual election? It was announced in January 31st, and the election was February 25th. In 2020, the Prime Minister announced the election on August 11th, and the election is September 23rd. All of those within 4 weeks. So that this idea that you're going to investigate and tell us what you have found in 28 days, that methodology needs to change immediately to ensure that at least this experiment doesn't go as afoul as it can if we do get other incidents of violence.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Professor. Great to see you, sir. God bless you.
And thank you. And you
Sit with us
good
for a
work.
while, sir.
Thank you.
Professor Trevor Monroe, International Governance Consultant and Founding Director of the National Integrity Action.
Yep. Coming up next, the Maritime Authority of Jamaica is giving teens a chance to flex their photography skills. Oh, Nefred and I should enter that. Oh, they said teens. Never mind. We're going to find out more about this.
I can't still enter.
No,
You can't enter.
no. Oh.
From said teens.